All right, PAT families, this month I want to start off with a little exercise. I want you to imagine with me, if you will, that tomorrow morning your spouse wakes you up from your deep sleep and is already kind of in a hurry and starts barking at you with some tasks that they want you to do while you're trying to kind of still wake up, thinking about your morning routine and what you want to do. You're kind of groggy and they're asking you to get ready to get out of the house. Maybe you haven't had your morning coffee yet. And you start feeling their stress. You're not quite sure where you're going, how long you're going to be there, when that fun thing that you wanted to do is going to happen, when you are going to eat. Like, you just don't even know the plan, and they're telling you to start getting moving and moving you out the door. That would cause me a lot of stress. I'm sure it would you as well. And I don't think we stop and think about that sometimes those rough transition times that we have with our kids feel that same way to them. How often are they playing with something and we come in and we're like, oh, time to go, and kind of rush them off to the next thing. Or in the mornings, we maybe overslept, we're in a hurry, and we have to start rushing them through their morning. Things like that are going to happen. But what if we could create an environment for our kids that felt safe by providing some consistency and predictability? I know when I was a young parent, my natural temperament is one that's a little less structured, more fly by the seat of my pants. My husband's way more routine and disciplined. And we learned early on, and evidence backs this up, that kids do better and feel safe, which we've learned with conscious discipline, that feeling of safety is the first need that needs to be met before we can do all the other things. And one thing that really helps kids feel safe is having a sense of consistency, a natural rhythm to life, and some predictability. And just like we as adults and people would want that for ourselves. And so how can we build into our kids' lives this sense of rhythm and predictability that helps keep them feeling safe? And for those of you that have a temperament like mine, hate that feeling sometimes of feeling boxed into a schedule. And the good news is it doesn't have to be super rigid. It can be very loose. And we are going to show you by the tools we bring that you can kind of change things up. But what it's going to do is it's going to help us pause and be intentional about where are those little touch points throughout our day? What are the routines we do want to build into our day? How can we provide a little bit more consistency and predictability for our child and communicate that to them? And then when there's changes, then they'll have that base to go from to say, hey, normally we do this. Today we're going to change that and we're going to do this instead. And then just becoming more aware of how we bring our kids through our day with us will help us through some of those challenging and transitions throughout our day, challenging times and transitions. So what we're going to do this month is we're going to help you think through what is one point in your day, one routine that feels really stressful for your family. We all have them. You have young kids. For a working family, it may be morning routines and getting everybody out of the house. You're in work mode and having to try to get to work on time. That's important. And at the same time, wanting to provide a good, calm morning for your kids. And so that could be your thing. Or maybe you're a stay-at-home parent and you find that you get asked for a snack 10,000 times a day and you want it to be able to be something that's more predictable and routine for your kids. Or you're just struggling to balance chores and errands and playtime and making sure your kids have a sense of knowing when they're going to get that connection time with you. And so you want to put together a schedule that helps make that feel predictable. The great thing is we can start this when kids are really little. And if you have a baby under one, your parent educators probably talk to you about bedtime routines. And even though they're not going to talk back with you yet at that stage, you're starting to build in those predictable rhythms and routines, even when they're really young. The main things to work around, obviously, are kind of waking up, meal times, bedtimes. Like, that's a great starting point. Then building in some one-on-one interactions, some of those I love you rituals. We're going to talk about connection next month, and that will be so fun. But little 10-minute intervals of undistracted time. I think of another challenging time for working parents can be when we all come back home and get in the house right after work and school, and you're starting to have to go through bills and look at dinner and all of those things. And could we, if we're making a plan for that time when everybody gets home, maybe it's putting away our shoes and backpacks or whatever, and then we sit and read books for 10 minutes. And that's on a visual routine is that reminder to us to pause, reconnect with our kids after some separation, and then go into making dinner and show your kids that after story time, then it's mom getting ready for dinner. Maybe the kids help, or dad, maybe the kids helping with that, or having quiet time. So your parent educator this month is going to bring some tools, which we're excited about. It's going to be on the simple side, but then you can take it wherever you want with that. So if you ever collected baseball cards, we're going to start by giving you little baseball card sleeves. And then we're also going to bring you a set of pictures to start with. Sometimes the hardest part is just getting started when it comes to visual routines. In the newsletter, you're going to see some pictures of some other homemade visual schedules. If you really feel overwhelmed by that, you can get on Amazon, and for less than $20, you can get tons and tons, I think like 100 different cards. So you'll find everything you need. And then some cuter routine charts that you could hang up. So you can make your own, buy your own, or just use what we bring you. We're going to bring an example of how you could put them on a board like this with Velcro so that they could come off, and you can switch off day to day. You could make a schedule for maybe an older two, or if you have older kids, that's your whole day, from wake up, maybe it's cuddle time and then breakfast time, going off to school, or, play alone, free play time. You could add errands in there if that's something that you do that day. So when they get up in the morning, you can kind of review and talk through your day. This is what is going to happen today. For littler kids, you might start really small and you're just going to do one little part of the day at the time. So we're going to wake up, we're going to snuggle, and then we're going to eat breakfast. And then you might switch into the next ones after that. The other way you can use these is if you have, again, just that time that's really challenging, bedtime. Like every other time is great. We don't need this schedule all the time with our kids, but bedtime is always a challenge. And so we're going to put in there, and I would get as specific as one book if we're going to read books. So we would do maybe brush our teeth, put our jammies on, read a book, get in bed. I love adding an I love you ritual in there too if you've been practicing those. And so have a picture for each of those, and then they get to follow along. One of the reasons these work so well is it does provide some independence for our kids. If they ask, for a snack, you can say, oh, let's look at our schedule and see when snack time is. Oh, first playtime, then snack. You can also use a tool called First Then Cards, which we're going to bring for you as well, that you can use the pictures with. So if they're waiting for snack time, you could say, oh, first we go to the store, then we eat snack. And that's not the pictures that are on here. But those are some different ways that we can use visuals. Again, we get to stay in that assertive, calm voice. We aren't the bad guy, the schedule is. And it does cause us to be intentional on planning those transition times that we're struggling with, being thoughtful of, did we plan in enough connection time when our kids do have our focus? And then the last little quote that you're going to get this month is, being in a hurry causes stress. All the time. Like, love doesn't hurry. We've got to find ways to create some margin. So there's going to be those days that you oversleep and your morning gets rushed, but can we be intentional? If there's a time of day that's feeling really challenging, can we build in a little bit of extra time so that we aren't rushed, so that when our kid wants to put on their own shoes, we can say okay and let them try before they finally hand them to you because they can't get them on. Just little things like that. Or we can build in that snuggle time before we have to grab them out of bed to get ready to go. We could read a book together. We could do an I love you ritual. We can have some of those connection points built in, and doing that even for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, in the middle of the day, and at bedtime. Just starting with that would be huge. And I think you'll find having these visual schedules, providing that predictability and routines, and then being purposeful about some of those little touch points, which we're going to get into a lot more depth with those next month. But being thoughtful about that is going to provide that safety by building in that predictability and consistency that your kids are craving. So enjoy the conversations with your parent educator this month. We'll be excited to see some of the tools you come up with on your own and make them yours. And we will see you next month.